All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tolentino Teaching. I just wanted to explain, I had some questions about how I grade the writing prompts or the creative writing prompts I give. So I'm going to give you an explanation of how I do that. Now, once again, with grading, some people are very opinionated about how to grade. So if you don't like the way I grade, that's fine. If you like some things I do, you could take some ideas. That's up to you. But I know people get very opinionated when it comes to grading. So let me show you what I do. So I took down some notes to explain. So first of all, with these writing prompts, when I look at grading them or assessing students, first I think about what's the goal? What is the purpose of these writing prompts? And the purpose of these prompts are different than what I do later in the year or when it comes to formal essays, okay? So the purpose of these prompts are congruent with the affirmations and feedback I give students. So there's three different ways, main ways I give feedback for students. And these are the three things I'm trying to promote in my students' writing. So first one is I celebrate students experimenting with language, okay? Or yeah, experiment with language. And there's three different ways I want students to experiment with language. So first of all, with these writing prompts, I want students to experiment with vocabulary, to play with new vocabulary. So I'll tell students things like, dude, if it's like a sixth grader, dude, you just used an SAT word. You know what the SAT is? And the sixth grader might be like, no, what's the SAT? You're like, dude, the SAT is like the main test you take to get into university. It's like a college level word, you know? These are words that professors use, and you just used it in your writing. And it gets students excited about words and excited about the fact that they're making progress. So I am a huge proponent of getting students the chance to experiment with language. And the first way of doing that is experiment with advanced vocabulary. Another way is I want students to experiment with punctuation, okay? I mean, I'm biased on this point, but if you get a seventh grader and they use a dash perfectly, I get excited. I'll be like, wow, Juan, you just used that dash perfectly. You accentuated your point. You made that point clear by using a dash there. So I celebrate students experimenting with punctuation. So dashes, colons, commas, anything, right? And you're going to get students who, when they're experimenting with stuff and they feel free to do so, you're going to get students making a lot of mistakes. And this is good. This is a good thing. If you're getting a paper, if you're getting a writing prompt and the student is misusing a few words, that's great. That's something you can build upon, right? Hey, I really like the way you integrated loquacious, the word loquacious into this prompt. However, I wouldn't have used it exactly like this, but it's really good that you're dropping SAT words like this. We're gonna straighten this out, and over time, you're gonna be an expert in this. Okay. So I keep feedback positive and I celebrate a lot. Okay. And then a great thing to do when it comes to feedback, and once again, what I'm looking for in writing is the use of rhetorical devices. So you as the teacher, if you can pinpoint students using these devices, it can be very empowering to students. Because often students don't even know they're using these things, right? But if you can pinpoint it and say, hey, you're using these advanced skills when it comes to language, okay, and you put a name on it, like you just used anaphora. You know what anaphora is? Well, you just used it. You just use repetition and successive clauses. You just did it. Okay. That's awesome. Do you know the point of anaphora? And the student be like, no, I've never heard of anaphora. Like, the point of it is to kind of cement an idea into the reader's head. And you're doing that naturally. So great use of anaphora. So you as a teacher, you need to recognize these things and then celebrate it. And when you celebrate it, you promote students using these things, right? So I celebrate experimenting, students experimenting with language. That's vocabulary, punctuation, rhetorical devices. Number two, I celebrate ideas. Okay, so with some writers, the writing is it's just pretty bad. The sentences aren't right, the paragraphs aren't right. There's not a lot to build on initially. But one thing, a foundation you could build upon is ideas, right? You get any student writing on something they know about, okay, whether it's video games, whether it's social media, well, K-pop, I don't know. If it's something students are interested in, they're going to have good ideas. They're going to have sophisticated ideas on that topic because they're interested in it. So what you can do is you can really use that to grow their writing, okay? So for example, you have great ideas, but if you use more periods and cleaned up your language a little bit more, your ideas would really shine. So you can use their ideas to stay positive with the feedback, okay? Also with ideas, I've never heard that perspective. What a unique idea. I'm a big fan and proponent of students developing their own thinking. That's something I celebrate, right? Because in life, we're constantly synthesizing information from our experiences, from what we've read, the documentaries we watched, and we're constantly forming new ideas. And to see students do this on paper is good, and it needs to be celebrated, okay? Where did you get that idea? Did you see it in a documentary or something? I like dropping that, like trying to promote. Did you read that in a book? Promote reading, documentaries, and really bringing that information into their writing, okay? And the last thing I celebrate is clarity. A lot of student writing is just not very clear, at least initially. And that's a problem. You can have great ideas, but if you're not able to convey those ideas on paper clearly, nobody's going to understand your ideas. If you have a business plan and no one can understand what your business is trying to do, then you're not going to have a business. So clarity is very important. So when students write something that is clear, I celebrate it. That paragraph was clean. It was it was easy to understand and to the point. You have many great ideas, so that is a good start, but be sure you read what you write several times and edit your work. This will ensure your writing is clear. Clarity is a sign of good writing and thinking. And yeah, so I really promote clarity because it is a sign that you are clear thinking and you can harness your thoughts. And to represent yourself, you're going to have to be able to write clearly and think clearly. So the purpose of the writing prompts, my overall purpose is for students to develop their own ideas and learn how to articulate those ideas through writing, okay? So I want students to experiment. So these prompts are low stakes writing prompts, okay? They're low stakes. The purpose is not to have this sophisticated rubric in which I have everything that's measurable or whatever. The purpose is to give students a chance to be creative, experiment, take chances, have fun with language. That's the purpose. So I don't grade this in the same way that I grade formal essays, okay? Formal essays, I'm very by the book, okay? I think being able to write an essay clearly, like an argumentative essay that has a specific, but not too specific thesis statement, and then there's paragraphs that align with that thesis statement, it demonstrates a student that can think logically and follow a linear line of reasoning. That's tough to do, and that is very, very important. I'm a huge proponent of that, but that's different from these prompts, okay? These prompts, I'm trying to develop students as writers, as people who appreciate ideas and clear thinking, okay? And if I can get my ideas, if I can get students to do that, it'll shine. Essay writing will be much easier. So grading, the way I grade probably doesn't make everyone happy because I don't grade everything. I can't. There's too much to grade. Prompts are a form of low stakes writing, and the goal is to get students to experiment with languaging and developing their own ideas. So here's the thing with the prompts, I don't take this scientific approach. I don't know if that's the best way of saying it. In education today, everything is seen as being measurable it has to align with the standard, it has to do this. And I'm a proponent, I'm not against standards, right? However, you can't, this is just my thinking, okay? This is how I view it. You can't, controlling the whole learning process or putting a number for everything, learning's not always linear. It's messy, it takes experimenting, it's not something you can always control. So what I do is I take a very individual approach to it. So my goal is by halfway through the year, I should have a piece of writing on paper and I'll say, oh, that's Juan's, or that's Sophia's, or that's Greg's writing. Okay. So I understand the story of their writing, who they are as writers. And I grade basically if they do the work and they're demonstrating these things, they're experimenting with language, they're celebrating, they're developing ideas, and the writing is getting clearer, I give them 5 out of 5 or 8 out of 8. That's just what I do. I know a lot of people are moving away from the point system. That's just what I do for these. Okay. And if a student's not doing that, then it's an individual approach. I take off certain point. I'll talk to the student about it. I'm like, hey, you are rushing through this writing. Your writing sounds like a text message, right? However, I noticed you had some really good ideas. So what I want you to do is you need to learn how to harness and really clearly capture those ideas. Okay, this is going to help you think. This is going to help you in the future. You need to do this now. This is important now. Okay. So I don't have a science. I don't have like. I feel it out. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but I kind of feel out the grading process for that, and I do it on an individual basis. As for essay writing, I'm very strict with the rubric. For the essay, it's totally on how competent you are at writing and following that rubric. And I think that's very, very important for that component of writing. So yeah, so that's how I grade these writing prompts. I give points. I do a lot of celebrating and affirmations. And if students are growing as writers, I give them credit. I give them full credit. So that's how I do it. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed to Tolentino Teaching, please do so. If you like my ideas or you don't like them, please share. I'm always experimenting. What I'm doing this year is going to be a little different than what I'm doing next year. I'm constantly changing as a teacher. My ideas are constantly in flux, but this is what I do. So, all right. Thanks for listening.